Deep into the belly of the ocean, the lowest depths of the unknown, the Piano Concerto Iceberg. Today we are exploring the Piano Concerto Iceberg. We are going very deep, perhaps not the lowest point, but it surely is deep, deep enough such that I haven't listened to these pieces and perhaps the same is true for you. Hello there, my name is Alec. I'm a fellow pianist. Hopefully you too are a fellow pianist. Today we will be touching on the topic of piano concertos you have not heard. Each concerto, I should preemptively say, each concerto will be done by a different composer, each one being from a different time period and some overlapping in which period they've done. Perhaps we'll have two romantic composers, two Baroque composers, etc. This is something I learned a little while back, so of course, if you do want more of my content, it necessarily follows that you must like it. With that being said, I present to you 5 piano concertos you've never heard before. Did you know that Bach wrote a piano concerto? Yes, Bach himself wrote a piano concerto. Now, perhaps you won't call it piano because of the 3 pedals and modern, whatever. Keyboard concerto, I guess that's what we can use for these older pieces. Bach himself wrote a piano keyboard concerto. No rambling though, I just want to showcase this immediately. I sadly forgot to mention that Bach didn't actually write this, it was Bach who wrote this. J.C. Bach precisely wrote this piano concerto, not S. Bach. Now, as we know, Bach had many kids, 20 to be exact, and J.C. Bach was one of them. Johann Christian Bach wrote this piano concerto in F major, and it is truly a gem, I do admit. One of the things that we do have to analyze here is the early period in which J.C. Bach found himself. He was the forerunner, perhaps, of many of the classical works that we hear within Haydn, Mozart, and many others. In fact, let me show a clip in which it just sounds almost perfectly like Mozart. Truly interesting how you can see these forms and styles of music and how you can see J.C. Bach influencing Mozart. Alrighty then, we now have our second piano concerto, done by a man named Henry Littolf. Littolf ended up writing 5 piano concertos. One of them are lost, so we only have 4 of his piano concertos. Today I'd like to debut the 4th piano concerto in E-flat major. Now, this piano concerto actually has 4 movements in total rather than your typical 3 that you might find in a Mozart sonata. Now, did you hear that? It was a bit familiar, you might say. Let me tease this a bit more and show you a clip of a Chopin piece. Nearly identical, you might say. Now, this is a trend that we're going to continually see. You'll either see large composers like Mozart taking from lesser known composers, but not necessarily taking, it's more so of being influenced by their style, I suppose you could say. And then you'll see lesser composers take from more known composers. So in this case, we'd have Henry Littolf taking or having some ideas come from Chopin's piece. And I want to say that Littolf most likely got influenced by Chopin because his piano concerto in E-flat major was written after Chopin's piece. Moving on to the third piano concerto, we have a man by the name of Edward MacDowell. Edward MacDowell was an American romantic composer who lived during the time of the 1800s, 1882 or so, and he unfortunately died at the young age of 47. Now today we'll be looking at his Opus 15 number 1 in A minor. Keep that in mind, A minor. I just want to show some of his third movements. Now, personally, I do like the beginning of the third movement. It is reminiscent of something I have played before and is quite interesting. Let me show you a clip of another piano concerto that also so happens to be in A minor. Now, surely it's not a stretch to say that Grieg was influencing Edward MacDowell in some way. I mean, to be fair, his piano concerto, Grieg's concerto to be specific, came 30 years prior to MacDowell's A minor concerto. Surely a few similarities and ideas brushed off to MacDowell in some sort of way. At least, that's what I'd say. Of course, you can interpret this however you'd like, but honestly, I do say that Grieg influenced him some sort of way. If I were to ask you, who was the greatest romantic composer, who might you say? You might say, oh, well, Chopin was, or Franz Liszt. You might be of the mindset that Schubert was the greatest, or even Mendelssohn. Well, what do they all have in common? Well, all of these men had one factor in common with them, and it's, well, what I just said, that they're men. Generally speaking, we don't see female composers rise to the popularity that we see other composers like Mozart and Beethoven or Bach. I say all this just to point out a trend that we see, that in order to find extremely good pieces by female composers, you generally do have to do a little bit of research rather than stumbling across it. This just segues perfectly into number 4, the thumbnail of this video, Amy Beach. Now, just like Edward MacDowell, Amy Beach was an American composer who also lived during the Romantic but primarily late Romantic period. Today we'll be looking at one of her piano concertos. This piano concerto is in C sharp minor, and it is Opus 45, composed in 1899. Of course, I'd advise that you just look into all of these pieces that I've already mentioned, as each and every one of them are truly amazing and beautiful, especially the one that I just played. Number 5, we have blasted into the future of modernism with the composer Reger. And if you spell Reger backwards, it's Reger. As we finally approach to the last composer, you may notice a trend. We started with the earliest composer, J.C. Bach, and we moved down, and we moved into the Romantic period, and then we got into, well, modernism. Of course, listening to the piece in its fullness, you will have this question of, well, what is happening to the key signature? Some commenters or commentor might say the same thing as well, and I couldn't agree more. Well, hello there, you've made it to the end of the video. I'm very proud of you for listening to every single thing that I said. As you can see here, I'm finishing up the editing for this video. I'm simply recording this so I can put it as the outro. Of course, this took me several days as I am using a new editing software. I'm very happy that I have it now, and it is just absolutely amazing the things that I'm able to do on it. Of course, if you did enjoy, and you enjoyed the editing even, it would be much appreciated for you to hit the like button and subscribe button, of course. And shout out to my professor, you know who you are, who has taught me these particular things, and I've taken them, I've put them into video format. In fact, I will be sending my professor this video, and I'm sure he will absolutely enjoy it. Other than that, I am the fellow pianist, signing off till next time. More videos in the future.